to this great annual rite of passage which we have. It's a fantastic crowd here in both terms of quality and quantity. You're all very welcome. We've got some most distinguished visitors here, ambassadors, particularly warm welcome to Alexander Downer, High Commissioner of Australia, our incoming chairman, who's played so important a part in these debates in his own native land over the years. But above all, particularly a warm welcome to our guest of honour tonight, Right Honourable Greg Clark MP, who I think in policy exchange terms can truly count as a Gaulliste du premier jour, having been a friend of ours from our earliest days as an obscure ginger group, and then our transformation into a leader in the fight for ideas. And it's a particular pleasure to be able to welcome Greg on this day where he's made his own most significant statement today at the conference, where I think many of us will agree with what he said, that we're experiencing perhaps the greatest crisis in 70 years in the history of the party, and particularly also in the struggle for the battle of ideas. You've always done us proud, Greg. You've been a good friend to us institutionally, personally, also a neighbour. So thank you for coming here tonight. Thank you for sparing the time. And I know everyone here will look forward, from whatever walk of life they're from, in hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dean. It is fantastic to be here, and to my only regret is that looking down the programme that you've had in these rooms, every single one of the meetings and fringe events and seminars, I would love to have been sitting in the audience taking notes, because there's been a real theme, and it doesn't surprise me, because Policy Exchange, right from the outset, has been it's been in the vanguard of the thinking, urging on the government to think seriously about an industrial strategy for the future. It was one of the earliest themes that Dean alighted on in his directorship. And throughout that, it's not just a suggestion that has been made by Policy Exchange. They've put it into practice. Dean has arranged a very distinguished conference in Westminster around the themes of industrial strategy, had round tables, and looking through the programme of the last few days. Today alone, in this room, there's been a discussion on the role of place in industrial strategy, how to power up the Northern Powerhouse, the role of investment in infrastructure, industrial strategy and digital disruption, all across the different subject areas. Policy Exchange is thinking deeply and creatively about the future. So I'm very grateful that you have chosen to mark yourselves, mark this think tank. What a festive noise. To be the think tank that is putting itself at the vanguard of industrial strategy. Now, as Dean was saying, this is an organisation, a think tank, that from its very inception was there to challenge, was there to set out the future of the Conservative Party. And I'm thrilled that in alighting on these themes, that you, Dean, and Policy Exchange regard this as so important. When it comes to the battle for ideas, think tanks like Policy Exchange, perhaps par excellence as a think tank that was conceived to point a way forward to the future, needs to be in that battle. And it seems to me that although I talk a lot when we discuss industrial strategy about the need to establish a consensus, and we work very closely with companies of all sectors, many of whom are here today and have been around Dean's table when we've had seminars and discussions. It seems to me that we're going to have an industrial strategy that endures, and after all, a short-term strategy is a contradiction in terms, then the way to do that is not to have something that is deliberately party politically partisan, but to ensure its longevity by working with people in universities, in research establishments, in companies, in industrial sectors, to capture the essence of what is needed to equip ourselves from the future. But having said all that, if I can put it this way, it seems to me impossible to contemplate an industrial strategy if a party is hostile to business. And so when we look at the discussions in Brighton last week, there was some talk about the new challenges of the economy, of clean energy, of robotics, of artificial intelligence, of the changes in mobility, of electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. But it seems to me that you can't credibly set out an agenda for the future if you're hostile to the very enterprise and entrepreneurialism and innovation that is required to make that a reality. And so when we promote and discuss and deepen and apply our industrial strategy, I think that is concomitant with that is the need to make this case that actually to have contestable markets, to have a business environment here in which businesses can be established, they can grow, they can find finance, and they won't be shielded from competition. They won't be subject to nationalisation and the threats of it. That is absolutely essential to the requirement to have a coherent industrial strategy for the future. So in the discussions that you've had here today and you'll have tomorrow about forging a consensus as to what are the policies, what are the areas, what are the institutions that we need to create, both in science, in engineering, in skills training, in local leaders, in institutions, in our great cities and counties all across the country. In doing that and in forging a strong consensus around that, I think all of us need to remember that that consensus depends on the case for and the legitimacy of a vibrant capitalist economy. And what I said in the hall today is that we need to remake the case for that. It's the duty of our party, and we are aided and helped considerably by the intellectual vigour of people like Dean and think tanks like Policy Exchange in doing that. So I'm very grateful to everything that you do, Dean, to lead that charge. I'm very grateful for everyone that supports you in this important work. And I hope that in the months and years ahead, we will join that battle and we will win it. Thank you very much indeed.
Greg, thank you very much for those kind remarks, giving me much of the credit for what we do. I'm reminded of the immortal Ronald Reagan. Line, there's no limit to what a man can achieve so long as he doesn't mind who takes the credit for it. That is the advice that I'll be giving all my young staff today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for our brilliant team who's worked on this, not least Jonathan DuPont, who's spent so much time, Sir Geoffrey Owen, who heads our programme in this area, Warwick Lightfoot, and all of the others who've contributed on a cross-unit basis to this vital work strand. And Greg, thank you for honouring us in this way. Always welcome here. We look forward to welcoming you back in the near future. Thank you.